everyone and welcome today for Book Talks with Shweta. Today on my secret bookshelf, today in this Book Talks, we have a guest Ameya Prabhu on his current book, The Rock Babas and Other Stories. Well, this book has a couple of short stories, but every story is going to move you, is going to keep you thinking, and is going to make you think a lot more and seek some answers. Well, also, before I invite our guest, I want you to know my secret bookshelf is an online virtual book club, also is an online bookstore. And to know more, log into mysecretbookshelf.co.in. Ameya Prabhu is here and I'm going to send him a request. Do you know this is his practically happening on Book Talk with Shweta. And I'm all excited because every story has resonated with me and has kept me thinking. And there's so much to ask. Hey Ameya, welcome to Book Talks with Shweta.
Hi, Shweta. Be on. Good to be on the chat with you. Hope you're well.
Very well. Hope all well at your end too.
Yes, thank you. I'm just going to adjust this a bit so it's better. Yeah, all well, all well. I'm actually today in Dhaka, in Bangladesh. I'd come here for an event, so visiting. So I'm logging in from Dhaka today, from our lovely neighboring country.
So all viewers are all excited to know about your new book. And before I start a book talk, is there something you want to tell your viewers who are all excited to know about your current book?
Honestly, I think I think it's as you know, it's a book of 9 short stories, and I travel a lot, and I set the stories in different parts of the world. Also a commentary on various cultures, but at the same time, it's a sign of how similar we all are, despite being from all over the world. So that was the idea of the book, and really happy to be on your show today, and looking forward to talking more about the book.
So, like he said, there are 9 short stories. I wouldn't call them short because though they are made in like short words and in a short format, they still are quite deep stories. Like every story has a very deep lesson attached to it. And I also wouldn't want to give spoilers to the readers here. But was there a conscious effort to write your book with short stories?
Certainly it was, because while of course the entire book.
Now I can.
Yeah. So if you see the length, so if you see the length of the book, it is actually a novel length book. But in terms of the stories, they are all about 25 to 30 pages each, and the idea was that someone can read it over a couple of hours, maybe a flight like a Bombay Delhi flight. You can read one of the stories, and then you can pick up the book maybe a week later and just continue with a different story, which is in a way the theme is similar but not very linked. So I think that was the idea of the book, that we can give the readers, because I personally feel that the modern reader does not have the mind space or the time to read an entire novel. I'm sure someone like you who's a book aficionado does, but a lot of the, I would say 9 out of 10 modern readers, they want to read in smaller doses, and that's why even if you see the advent of web series versus a movie, that's what's happened. So I think that we certainly see that the trend changing, and hence I decided to focus on short stories. So while the book itself is a novel length book, the stories add up to that, and the stories themselves are not. So I think that was the idea. So it was a conscious decision. Even when I first spoke to publishers, they were like, "Oh, do short stories really sell? I'm not sure." So it was a bit of a risk. I'm certain it certainly was a bit of a risk, but I think it was a risk that I believe paid off, because there's been good feedback. People are enjoying reading the book. I've had great, responses on the book. So, and I'm glad that I would definitely write a novel someday, but I think short stories, at least to start with, are the way to go.
So, what made you choose this specific 9 stories amongst all the stories that you've come across in your life?
I think, I keep jotting down ideas and thoughts whenever they come to me, because, inspiration doesn't really need, or rather, a thought or an inspiration doesn't really have a timeline when it comes to you. It can come to you at any point in time. So I do keep jotting down ideas, and, I had about 25 to 30 ideas on stories which I wanted to write on. And I think I just chose the 9, which, initially, as you know, I wanted to do 10.
I've again lost you. I can't hear you. Huh. I heard initially you wanted to do 10 and then we
Yeah,
lost you.
to 10, and then later on I decided to do 9 stories because of the fact that I think the book felt right at 9 stories, because and I'd shortlisted 10 various different ideas of what I wanted to do, and then I chose to reduce it to 9, because at that point in time this and why I chose these, because I think the themes were quite dissimilar, in the sense that while the underlying thought of human journeys is what united all the stories. I mean, you have one story which is based in Japan, one in Colombia, one all over the world. So I think, and again, for example, the stories that I chose for example, we have The Accidental Philanthropist, which is the first story in the book, which is set in Japan, about a Japanese billionaire who's very loved, who's very rich, but not very loved, very successful, but not very popular. And he is someone who, through the course of the story, as you know, goes through certain life-changing experiences, and we discuss this other story details as to how that impacts him. So I think so that was one which I chose. I chose another one, The Manifestations of Anpao, which is based in the US, which has strong Native American themes, etc. as well. So I think the reason why I chose them was they gave different facets of human life that I wanted to explore. And again, I think beyond this, I remember I was actually had chosen a 10th story, and when I finished the ninth one, it just felt right. I felt that I think that this is the right, and again, as I said, it was not a conscious decision. It just happened, and I felt, what, I want to stop writing now because I think this book is ready. So yeah, so that's the way it happened. So I think a lot of art is a mix of planning, but also certain creativity, or certain. I also believe it's a question of your instinct or gut, and I think that's how I chose them, and that's why I decided to stop where I did.
I totally agree with you on that because as an artist, as an expressionist, you have to follow your gut. If you don't follow that, you're not listening to your intuition when you are actually in the total essence of the subject. So I think I totally agree with you that the ninth story just made the whole book complete. Obviously, this is a series you can always continue because there are so many stories that can connect. But yeah, and at the same time, we have a lot of viewers here. Jahapan Shah is saying an amazing read, great executed ideas. Cheers from Hong Kong. Rohan Jesha is saying go Amaya. Unicorn being fit fabulous, and book readers from Jaipur are saying totally they agree with you on what you've said all this while. And I have a question here that how did you decide on this quirky title?
So as we discussed, the book is a series of 9 short stories, and one of the stories is called The Rock Babas, and it's about it's actually, the story is about a Swiss hotelier who's climbing. He's again a successful man who is very set in his ways, and he's very, I would say, planned, very organized. And while he's climbing in the Himalayas, specifically Kanchenjunga, he gets caught in an avalanche. He gets lost, and he wakes up and he's rescued by this secretive bunch of monks known as the Rock Babas, who play rock music and connect with the higher essence that exists in the world. The higher, you can call it God, you can call it the greater energy that dictates the world. But so so I called them the Rock Babas. Actually, I thought of the concept of the Rock Babas, and I wrote the story on the back of that. And when it came to naming the book, we went through several iterations. What should we call it? And in writing, writing a book is a lot easier than naming a book, and
Right.
it's a lot of effort. So I mean, went through several iterations. This, that. I mean, and then finally, I just said, why not call it the Rock Babas and the other stories? Because I mean, it's definitely my favorite title. Even though we have pretty good titles otherwise, like I think The Accidental Philanthropist is also a good title. We have Memoirs of a Dictator is a good title. Even if you look at a story like, for example, The Broken Nightingale is also a good title, or even Manifestations of Anpao. Of course, most people may not get, but so I do spend some time on the titles of each story. But when it came to actually titling the book, it was such a struggle. But I decided to finally go with the Rock Babas and other stories because I think that was quite a cool title to have.
But I have to say that, when I got the book and it was like the rock babas and the other stories and the quirky monks, playing the instrument here, I was very intrigued. Like, I had not read the blurb, nothing. It actually hold my attention. I was just looking at the entire cover and the colors on it, and just the title made me want to read further. Like, I had no idea what I was getting into, but like, you said it's difficult to name the title because it's the title that actually holds on your attention first, and then the rest follows. And I think the Rock Babas is just completely perfect. It just also unites with the other stories in some way, like, at a deeper level.
Yeah, no, I guess so. Yeah. Sorry. I mean, I think when people ask me such stuff, I say I think it's best for the readers to know than me, because they are the ones who, because if we create, the readers are the ones who give the feedback. So when you tell me that it holds good, I would say there's a good connection with the other titles. I'm very happy to hear that.
So, readers, if you have read a book, do review it on My Secret Bookshelf, on other platforms, DM the author, let him know what you liked about the book. And if you haven't, then go online, buy a copy. You can buy it on mysecretbookshelf.in. Besides that, also on other platforms. And do let us know, what do you like the most about the book. DM us. We are waiting to know all about it. But go after our book talk, not right now. So, back to our book talk. How long did it take you to write this book?
So I mean, I wrote it pretty quickly. I actually wrote it during the lockdown last year. So I started it just before the lockdown, when things were, in Mumbai. I live in Mumbai, so when things were I would say the work from home, etc., was starting. So around, say, the 10th, 15th of March, 2020 is when I started, and I was done around the 15th of June. So I actually wrote it in 3 months, and it was, to be honest, a mammoth task because, of course, everything was shut. So that was an advantage, and but it was certainly a mammoth task. But I actually set myself timelines that I want to finish X words in such a time, and of course you don't meet them because you know there's a lot of research which also goes into these stories. Because if when you go through, let's say, for example, a story like Agent Holder, which is based in the US, in the state of Georgia, and it's about it's a detective story, right? It's about a criminal investigator, and of course there's also an element of race crime in the US and stuff like that. But I went a lot of research that I had to do in ballistics. For example, that had to be in terms of how a gun is fired, what sort of residue it leaves. So I mean, I knew none of these things, so I had to actually study a lot and because, for example, which I found out that different guns have different cartridges. Based on the cartridge and based on the residue it leaves, you can actually find out. Or for example, based on where the bullet was hit, you can find out exactly who was the person who fired it. So it's very interesting, actually, all these things. So there's a lot of research which went into these stories, and I think so that's why it took time. But I think the key here was I was locked down in an apartment, so it was a lot easier. If you ask me to write with the same speed today, I think it'll be very tricky. I mean, extremely tricky, I would say.
Well, that was my question. Being in financial services, entrepreneur, founder, and managing director. Like, I mean, you are a multitasker here. So, today, if you have to write a book, how would you discipline yourself?
As I keep saying on various platforms, writing a book is 80% discipline. It's all about taking the time out. It's all about structure. A lot of it is about making your outline, sticking to a x number of words that you want to write. And I mean, there are people who don't do that. There are people who write when inspiration strikes, which is also fine. But again, within that, you still need discipline to complete it in a set amount of time. And the other flip side is that you're never really fully satisfied with anything that you write. I mean, each time I read my book, I want to change something about it. Like even today, when I read it, I want to change something about it. And I think I mean, some small thing, some word here or something there. And I think the other key here is that, nothing will ever be perfect as an artist or as a writer or as a creator. You need to draw a line and say that, well, this is it. We go out with it. And tomorrow, if there are meant to be iterations, there will be iterations, right? But this is, so I think if I'm going to go about it today, I think I'm thinking of a couple of themes as to what to write next. I'll probably start in the new year in 23. So I have a couple of themes on what I want to write. I've also been researching a bit on what I want to write, and but I haven't chosen the meat. Sorry.
Which year are you planning to start your next novel?
22. Sorry, not 23. Sorry, my bad. 2020. Yeah. Sorry. You're right.
5 long break.
No. 2022. Sorry, I meant early next year, as in early 2022. And so I want to start writing again, but I think it'll be trickier. I think I'll have to take time off. I'll have to, certainly. The one good thing is I write better at night, so in a way it kind of balances but then you also have to plan your sleep. So I think if you work all day and write all night, or rather most of the night, I think it does definitely going to affect your health. So I think I'll have to figure that out. But so maybe when we speak a year from now, after I've completed the next book, when things are open, and I do hope that we overcome this corona crisis. I do hope that this new wave, or the not a wave really, this new variant which is in, turns out to be not very dangerous. Because I mean, to be honest, while we are all worried about it, most of the reports do say that the symptoms are very mild. So I hope that continues and the world goes back to normal. And because people's livelihoods are at stake. So I hope that happens. So things are open. And then, but yeah, I think I'll end up writing weekends, end up writing at night, end up maybe taking some days off to write. So maybe a year from now, I can guide on that better.
You're deeply spiritual, and it does reflect in your writing, so what is spirituality for you?
I think if you ask me what is spirituality at the essence of it, I think it's something which is very deeply personal. I think it's the way you connect with the energy that surrounds us. Because ultimately, even us human beings, we are ultimately energy, right? And the world is energy, the nature is energy. And when we are also a part of nature. We have, of course, from being nature dwellers, we've now become city dwellers, and increasingly become disconnected with what the essence of human beings were, which was essentially connected with nature. And if you see, one of the reasons why I mentioned, if you see, a lot of these stories are about connections with nature. If you see manifestations of Anpao, the rock babas, even memoirs of a dictator, the early days of the person, if you see, they're all essentially connections with nature. So I think from that perspective, we'll be very. So for me, spirituality is about my personal connection with the energy that surrounds us, and I think basically a lot of wisdom is within us. I think we need to just connect to that wisdom, and we keep searching everywhere for wisdom. We keep searching everywhere for knowledge, and it's important to search around. But ultimately, when you look within, so I mean, think of it, right? The only time when our eyes are shut is when we sleep. Otherwise, where everything is external. We look out, everything is external. Whereas the greatest wisdom lies within us. You close your eyes in the day while you're awake, while you're aware, and you look within us, and the amount of wisdom you will find is it's incredible. So for me, really, spirituality is about my connection with myself, and in turn with the energy that surrounds me. And I use meditation as a form to harness that. I think that's the way I see it. And again, that does come out, I guess, in some of the stories. Not all of them, but certainly in some of them. And again, I think it helps you deal with the moral conundrums, or the generic dilemmas that life faces, right? Because if you see the manifestations of Anpao, it starts off by saying that there's good and evil in all of us. It's really about what we feed. And I think that I really believe in that. I think no one is born evil. I mean, that's also the idea of Memoirs of a Dictator. If you see, that's the link between those two stories, because he was born a normal guy. He was born a nice guy. He was born like, and with time, he increasingly gets corrupted, and he personally doesn't believe he's corrupted as a dictator. He still thinks he's doing good. But all of us end up getting, so it's really a question of the wolf you feed, as the Native American grandfather said. It's a question of, do you feed the good wolf or the bad wolf, the good, the dark wolf, or the wolf which is light. So that's something which we need to understand.
If my viewers wanted to ask you, why should they read the Rock Babas and the other stories, what would you tell them?
Well, firstly, I would say because Shweta recommended it, and also because I think that's certainly one of the main reasons why they should read it. But more important, I mean, of course, that's the most important reason. But also, other than that, I think it's just it's just honest effort by someone to I mean, to bring out what they believe and what they think. I think it's also a book which I think it relates to everyone. To be honest, I see a bit of myself in each character, and I'm sure that each person who reads this book will see a bit of themselves in each character. The travels and tribulations they go through it, the choices they have to make, and ultimately how they overcome it. And I guess in the case of one story, how they fall prey to it as well, which is also not everyone has the gumption or the tenacity to overcome a situation. So I think that from a personal point of view, I think. It's my ode to I think it's in a way also a very philosophical book. It's also in a way that I think that all of us human beings who go through through challenging situations, how we can it makes you believe that we are not alone. all of us go through it. So I think it's a book which, again, it's a book of hope. So when I wrote it during the lockdown, there's a lot of people were despondent. There's a lot of despair, and I wanted to write something positive. With everywhere I read was negative stuff all over, right? COVID hai, problem hai, job losses, people dying. So I wanted to give a message of positivity. So I guess the book is a message of hope. The book is a message of positivity. It's a book that is also I would say it wants to give people the courage to face up to situations and also realize that ultimately we're all the same. We're all human beings. We're all born. We go through good times. We go through bad times, and we overcome those bad times. And that's and then and ultimately one fine day we pass on to the next life. And I think the circle of life is something which we should respect. And so I mean, I know it's a bit of a roundabout answer to why people should read the book, but I think, but again, at the same time, it's a lot of fun. I think it's there's a sense of humor to it, and I do believe someday some of the stories could be made into a web series or a movie. So I guess that's the other element. But anyway, I think I mean, I do hope that people enjoy the book. Whoever has read it has given me good feedback so far, and so yeah. So I think, and if you guys do read it, please review it and do let us know. And please, I think we'd be very happy to, and if there are, I mean, again, if there's any criticism, I'd love to hear that as well, because I think that's what criticism strengthens anyone. I think it's important. I think praise is cheap, but criticism is something which you really can really mold you into something better. So I'm happy to hear both. And I know it would be great to hear from you, from the viewers.
The viewers, do read, good, bad, whatever is your review. We welcome both of it. So after this book talk, please do get your copies, read, and let us know how you liked it. And if you've already read it, then do review it for us and for the other readers. And I strongly recommend this book. I'm repeating it again because I have enjoyed the stories and have resonated with every character. And I totally agree with you. The best part, Ameya, about the book is it doesn't come across very strongly, because many a times when you're talking about such deep aspects and they come across strongly, it puts you in a shell. But these stories are so well nourished that it automatically makes you seek some answers that you're seeking in life. And it's done very subconsciously. So that's the best part about your book.
No, thank you. And it was a conscious decision. I think again, we have to respect the reader. We have to respect the modern reader. People don't like sermonizing, and I definitely don't want to be someone who sermons. I think it's important to, spell out the stories, give out the message subtly. And I think the viewer, I mean, the reader is smart enough to understand or take away from the story what they want to. I think really need, I think if you see, respect is a very core tenet of the book, respecting cultures, respecting religions, respecting genders, respecting indigenous people, because, I speak about all of these aspects. And similarly, I think respecting also the reader is very important, because I think as an author, you just bring out what you want to give, and I think the reader should take away from it what they want. And I think that's a very important aspect for me, at least, that one really must. And that's why I said I also respect criticism, because if that's their honest opinion, I'm very happy to hear it. So but yeah, so that you I think you got it right. I think it was a very subtle way to bring it out, and I think that was the idea.
And on this note, do you have your copy around so that we can take a selfie moment
I
before we move?
actually don't, because I forgot to pack it, because as I said, I actually don't. But what I will do is I'll take a picture later on and I'll send it to you, so we can like maybe merge it in a collage or something.
The book. So are you
Yeah.
ready for it? And then we've had a selfie moment. We
Or I should
kind
have
of
actually had a pen and done a writing. I'm just joking, but like so that it could have been a dramatic rendition. But no, I'm just. But thank you so much for this, huh?
on the line, when we catch up, we might have the dramatic rendition. Maybe we make a reel, or we go with like both of us holding the copy.
No, we'll do that. I look forward to seeing you. And I must say before we end that I think it's been such a pleasure to meet you. Of course, meet you, and because I think in today's day and age, to see such passion for literature and to see such passion for reading, I think it's amazing what you're doing. I think it's really, really heart rendering that you're doing this, and I wish you all the best. And I really hope that you continue with as much gusto, because people. I think you're really bringing people back to reading and making reading fun. So thank you so much as an author, and thank you so much as someone who loves literature that you're doing this. Really appreciate it on behalf of all of us.
Thank you for these kind words. It's made me all the more enthusiastic about reading, and it's appreciation that all of us want, that we know we are on the right track. So thanks for these lovely kind words and making my day. But now I'm gonna not let you go. We are gonna have a quick rapid fire round. Are you ready for that?
Sure, looking forward to it.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a few questions, and the first thing that comes to your mind is what you have to tell us.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start. The Rock Baba and Other Stories.
Passion.
Westland Publications.
A great partners.
Accidental Philanthropist.
Confused man.
Manifestations of Anpao.
It's my ode. I mean, it's my ode to the Dark Knight and to and to the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Memoirs of a Dictator.
Everyone needs to learn from such people, because when things go wrong, they can go horribly wrong.
Agent Holder.
A victory of determination and of someone. I would say a victory of determination and endless pursuit of justice.
The Rainbow Prince.
A reformist. Brave
The man.
reformist. Sorry, a brave reformist.
The Man with the Beard.
Well, it's Fidel Castro in a way, so it's that's. But again, it's an anti-imperialistic sort of a story.
The Broken Nightingale.
I, I think there are so many words that come out, but I would say sadness of a career that could have been, yet celebration of something that was.
The Rock Babas.
Well, all I think of Deep Purple, because Smoke on the Water, or all my favorite 1960s rock songs. If it's ever made into a movie, I'd love all of them being on it.
The Shepherd.
Love, love. It's a love story. So I would say the strength of love.
And lastly, Book Talk with Shweta Roira.
Phenomenal.
Thank you, Maya, for your time. And it's so sweet of you to remove some time and talk to our viewers from Dhaka. Looking forward to reading this book and looking forward to many more books from you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much, Shweta. Thank you so much to My Secret Bookshelf, and of course to Westland for arranging this. And great viewers, thank you for being here. And please do buy a copy of the book. Either from Amazon or even from any brick and mortar bookstore. I think it's important to support them as well. And please keep following Shweta's amazing page. And thank you so much.
Thank
See you. Thank you.